There's your public service announcement slash warning. So, all right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday, April 3rd version of the PSWS operational telecon. Rachel's away today. I think the note we got says her sister is defending today, and I assume that means a PhD thesis, and she's not a fencer or a foiler or whatever they call that. But good for her. Hope she does well.
When I hear defending a thesis, I'm imagining, a little sword play, and flinging with trebuchets and all this kind of stuff. One of those Lord of the Rings apocalyptic battle things.
I think there's a mandatory comic for that.
Who did? There you go.
The best defense is a good.
That's great. I like the one. It's from the guy Sidney Harris, who did the cartoons for Physics Today for many years, and it shows two professors, and they're at a blackboard, and there's equations all over the board, and one of them is slugging the guy in the nose, and he says, "You want peer review? I'll give you peer review."
I was scared of something like that when I did my thesis review way back in the Stone Ages, but turns out the only professor in the room who had any inkling about what I was doing was my thesis advisor. And at that point, it was to his benefit that I got through it. So I didn't have that much trouble. Just got asked a few non-consequential questions.
In Finland, when you do a PhD thesis, there actually is a sword involved. And there also is one person on your committee that's an external person known as the opponent.
Oh.
So I put another link in the chat so you can read about that too.
All right. We'll get going on the minutes. Is there anything anybody wants to add to the minutes, or add to the agenda? And otherwise, we'll get into things. All right, great. Okay. Looks like we'll start with old business. I don't know. Is Kong on today?
Don't
Nothing
see him.
Okay, well, we'll give him a few minutes. He may pop in a little bit later. So anybody else have any comments on the grape 2 data? I know we've been working on grape 1 a little bit. On the grape 2, anything on the grape 2?
I have a question for John. I'd like to maybe, after the meeting ends, if we could stick around for a couple of minutes.
I can try, although I'm supposed to be in another meeting with the dean of the department right now, so I might be jumping out here soon.
Okay, I may be able to email you.
Yeah.
I emailed the question, but I used the wrong email address.
That's probably why I don't remember getting it.
Probably.
I
Okay,
forgot
I
to
think
write down the tracking number, but my hard disk is on the way back.
I have I've been tracking all the stations, and so far it looks like 16 Grape 2s have swapped the hard drives successfully, and as of last night.
Are any of them at 100%?
3 of them are at 100% now and have not swapped. The rest are either not reporting or they're less than 100%.
Yeah, I think I just hit 100%.
Okay.
Are there any questions about the process? Well, we've got a minute. I'm sure we'll have time. Is there any questions about the process? Because if one person has a question, others might. So no harm bringing it up now.
John, the dumb question I had for you is when you said plug in the memory stick that you sent with it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have an extra USB port. All 4 of mine are tied up. The 3 that were tied up by the uh, uh, process itself, and one for my keyboard and
Oh,
mouse.
okay.
Uh,
What you can do, since when you stop the data collection, you can actually unplug the Leo Bodnar, which will kill your frequency reference for the data collection. But since you're not collecting data, it's not a problem.
right. And which one of the two is the Leo Bodnar? Is it the one that goes back into the same?
You got a grape two, yeah, you have to have a grape two.
Yeah, grape
The
two.
one that loops up to the front of the box.
The front of the box. Okay, that I can do.
And then you can plug your keyboard into that spot because that's a USB 2 port.
Right, right.
And then you can plug the USB 3 into the upper one of the blue ones.
Okay, I figured that would probably work, but I was afraid to do it for fear I might mess something up.
No, you'd be fine.
Okay.
We've only had one semi-failure of the USB flash drives. Somebody down in, I think it was Georgia, but they kept at it and they got it to work. But
Yeah, the LSU station,
yeah, that was it.
Dana Brown, I think.
Okay. With luck, I'll have mine coming back to you today then.
As far as the copy goes, I had two of them take 7.5 hours and I had one take 4.5 hours. So your time will vary.
Okay. That figures.
It really relies on the hard drive or the jump drive's little charge pump. If it overheats, it slows down, which is why I try to interleave the reads and the writes. Because as I mentioned before, on the ones you get from Micro Center, I can usually kill those on the first try by writing too much data to them at one time.
Oh,
They just melt and they're dead.
that's bad. Yeah. So these slow down if it tries to get too hot.
I think that's what's going on. It's the only thing that makes any sense to me because it's a write limited process because it's the flash drive that's limiting the rate.
Right.
The first one or two is the way how you grip the line.
Already had that comment?
Like Todd Christel has an open mic.
Yeah.
Okay, I can get that.
I should give a little report on, we are getting the drives, and yesterday I tried a complete upload of, I uploaded one of the thumb drives, and I was able to get it loaded into the PSWS network system, and I was able to convert it all to DRF, and I was able to plot the data.
Oh, wow.
So the whole
By the way, it looks like Gary is host. Could you?
Yeah, Gary's host. He can mute him. I'm trying to get my host.
I'm sorry. Let's see, Bill, you have to re-enable your sharing. I'm sorry. I just knocked everybody offline.
all right, so
There we go.
yeah, I found out that these drives and these hard drives and thumb drives will not mount to a Windows system, which didn't really surprise me that much.
Yeah, they're ext4.
Yeah, so I took my Whisper Demon from home because it's got a fast computer with it. It's got that B-Link. Took it into the university and plug in everything to it and then start uploading from there, and it works like a champ. And since we have fiber going from our building to the IT department, it goes fairly fast, the unloading and uploading.
Excellent.
So anyway, right now I've just got to put together some automation to automate the process and get going on that. So we've got all the little parts and pieces individually working. So it's just a question of tying everything together and turning it on and then monitoring it as it runs. Also, I noticed something just this morning. If you go in and look at the Grape2 CSV data, that is the Grape2 that's FL Digi, you're going to find that there's a lot of redundancy in it. I have a bug somewhere in the uploader where each time it uploads a file that's supposed to be for a given day, it uploads the entire collection of data for that day as a zip file. So I've got several hundred files that contain a whole year's worth of, it looks like about a half, between a whole year's and a half year's worth of data in each one. So you'll just, if you ever go to look at that data, you'll notice there's a lot more data than what you expected. I'm going to see about getting that fixed. But nothing's lost. It just may cause some confusion if you go and use that data. And because of that, the plots for those files that are affected by that are not working because the plotter system sees all those additional files and doesn't know what to do with them and just gives up. Anyway, I thought what I'll probably do is give priority to getting the Grape2 importation of the hard drives, give that priority. And then I'll come back and fix that other problem, whatever it is. Because that's historical data. We can come back and get it. We haven't lost anything. So also on a related topic, we're in final testing of an API for mass downloading for people who want to specify, give me all the data for a certain station between this date and that date, and going to have various other ways of putting filters in for people who want to do mass downloads. I know that I think Rachel said she needs that, and so anyway, that's in progress. Hopefully we'll get something working on that tomorrow when I meet with the students. So.
Also, Bill, I might suggest that you keep the box for the drive and the drive together because you're going to be using them again in a year. And I tried to make them reusable.
Yeah. Well, I thought once I'm saving everything, and then once we have everything imported, I could ship everything back to you in a single box and you'd have the drives back. That occurred to me that would be one way
I'm
to
not
go.
sure that makes sense because they're going to be coming back to you again as well. So I mean, I guess we'll have to talk with Nathaniel and figure out what we're going to do with that.
Well, once these hard drives have been unloaded of their data, I figured you want to clean them off and send them back out next year.
Yeah, it's basically going to be the same run we did this year. Whether they ship from here or they ship from your place really doesn't make any difference. It just who makes the labels. But again, Nathaniel and I, and maybe you have to talk that out, figure out what we're going to do.
Yeah, we got plenty of runway on that. So
yeah.
So back to Nick.
Okay, I think I got reasonable notes on that. Good. It's really it's great to hear that so many of 16 we're basically at the halfway point or a little past the halfway point, so that's pretty encouraging. Usually you follow the 80-20 rule, right? 80% of them will get done in the first couple of weeks, and then we'll have to wrangle the last 20%, I suppose, but that's to be expected.
Gary, are you going to send people that have actually, Bill would be able to tell you who the people are that haven't swapped them out yet? Maybe send them an email or something? Or?
Yeah, I know I haven't. It's sitting on my desk, but I got it, and I will work on that swap out over the next week.
Are you one of the 100%ers?
Probably. I've been there's a lot going on, but I'm getting there.
Okay, I made myself a note to check in with Bill later today or so and look at the list, see who's still in process. Good idea. Because right, these things are filled up, right? We can't wait forever on this, right?
Well, it's going to shut the system down too. So
my whole antenna system needs a little work. So I have a work trip planned with Rob Robinette and Elmer Musser a couple weeks from now. So I have a week dedicated to doing antenna work and stuff like that. So
Yeah, chances are if you've been running since the eclipse, you're full.
yeah.
So your grape is basically offline.
Yeah, no, my group is definitely offline right now, but I
Okay.
will get it swept up.
Oh, okay.
I think your CW skimmer's down too. I didn't see any spots from you yesterday.
Everything's down right now. Everything. We'll get it. I've got plans to get it back up. But it was a rough winter.
I'm in the opposite. The only antenna that I have up is for my Grape 2, and every other antenna and beam has been damaged, and I've got to do a major project. But
Oh no.
the Grape 2 antenna is the only one that's up and going. And I'm one of those that haven't swapped out yet, and it's on schedule for this Saturday. So I will get to it.
Hopefully it'll go smoothly for you.
Same here. Everything is down except for the magnetometer. I still have to figure out how to put my tower back up.
Yeah, I guess there is a value to having underground instruments. So
Yeah, the magnetometer survived the tornado. No problem.
The only issue that I had with following the instructions was there seemed to be a stage at which you had to have read forward in the instructions.
Uh-oh.
I think it was now stick this label on the bottom of the blue case. And by that stage, I had reassembled everything.
Yeah, that was put in last.
Which is not
that
a big
was
deal.
put in last minute. So yeah, that's on me. That was a suggestion by Gary to get the sticker for the ownership because of I think Mike Nerda in Michigan when he passed away, and then the estate's not giving us the thing back. So
Oh, right.
so that was a last minute addition. So I apologize.
No, it's not a problem. There might have been another sticker issue. But hey.
that's a good point, Philip. I mean, while this stuff is fresh in our mind, if there's improvements we want to make to the instructions, do it now rather than try to remember a year from now, I guess, right?
Of course, we won't have to do the sticker on the bottom in a year from now anyway, so. At least I hope not. Back to net.
All right, great. Okay, the next thing I guess I'd ask about is the Legacy Grape 1. You guys, Bill gave me some instructions, and Dave, W0DAS, to update so that we would move our uploads from the WWV server to the U of A server. So what I did that, and I think my transfer status looks good, but I haven't followed up on that since last week. Is there any news on that?
No, there is not any news on that. I mean, if you transition that over and you got it running, you should be able to see your uploads appearing in observations.
There were a few days last week where we got successful uploads to PSWS, but the data had not appeared yet. So it sort of looked like the trigger had not been activated on the PSWS server or something, because the plots hadn't been generated. But I haven't checked recently, but both mine and Gary's data was not there. Maybe you can check now. Yeah. Nope.
Yeah, so that's worth looking into then, because I think I made the change last Wednesday or Thursday. I know you were on the road at the time, Bill, so I didn't bother you, but
Yeah, I saw that, Gary, and I've been checking every now and then to see if it's been put into the repository, but it had not up till the last time I checked. So. My node is AB1XB node 51. If you want to look at that, but
Yeah, will do.
I have two of those under the same name, so it's the legacy one.
Ah,
Yeah, try the other one, maybe. Yeah, okay, so, yeah, it looks like it's getting up. There's a 402 and a 401.
so
So
yours
that's
are there, but mine are not.
Yeah,
Gary, did you have some of them that worked in the past?
Well, mine were always going to WWV, so
oh, I'm
What?
sorry, this is the DRF one. Look at the other one again, if you wouldn't mind. Yeah, so the last date is 3/26, March 26. So that's the last. I've been uploading every night successfully, but they haven't been triggered. Since the 26th.
Oh, 26.
You pay your fiber optic tax bill? You might be overdue.
Fiber optic tax?
Yeah,
Um,
I'm talking about Bill Blackwell. He might not have paid his fiber optic tax.
oh,
I wish I had fiber optics.
Well, there you go.
We only have turtles on post-it notes on turtles down here in Florida.
They probably got sunglasses on too.
Yeah.
turtles and manatees, one or the other. All right, so that's something AB4EJ's got to look into, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right, so that's in process, so we'll get that figured out. Anything else on the legacy Grape 1, the FL Digi version?
I got
All
some
right,
updates for you, Gary, on the website for the Grape 2 stuff. There's some small things that need to be corrected, but I'll get in touch with you later.
okay, easy to do.
Yeah.
Michael, AC0G, I think I saw you logged on earlier. Is there anything new to report on the on our antenna project?
The testing continues on the single antenna system. Elmer is assembling a version of Jonathan's VLF antenna that he'll probably be getting up and running pretty soon. I haven't yet got around to doing that. That may help us answer the question about whether Elmer has a DX engineering antenna, although it's an older model, monopole vertical, to see if we have to worry at all about a active monopole interfering in any physical proximity to the VLF antenna. Using the single antenna system as the VLF antenna is also a planned experiment as well. I think it would be helpful to for us to know something of a timeline too for when, at least from the perspective of the DAISY grant, we should come to some kind of conclusion about whether to go with the DX engineering antenna, which I think I'm pretty confident is a serviceable and usable and supportable antenna versus the SAS, the single antenna system that Glenn developed. I don't think it's of any significant import to Glenn at all. So we don't have to consider that. He just wants, he's kind of interested in learning and being of service. So however that works out, it works out. It's possible Tapper might be interested in promoting the SAS on an independent path if it comes to that. Another set of single antenna system antennas we're assembling the kits for now, so we can take up to Dave Witten's remote site in Northwest Missouri. That hasn't happened yet. Hopefully we can get that deployed before the end of the month.
So just to clarify, Mike, your question on the deadline again, your comment on that was, I think that was important.
Well, at some point we're going to have to move out of testing phase into, okay, this is the antenna we're going to use, and how do we put together a comprehensive package for distribution to the sites that the DAISY grant is going to supply. So there's another set of considerations, I guess, that we have to entertain if we're more in a production and packaging mode than while we're here in more of a testing mode. So
I'm happy to have some discussion about that now if we'd like. I'm also
Sure.
happy to wait.
No,
So
let's do it.
Yeah. So from my perspective, okay, so from the grant perspective, it says we're going to deploy 25 of these things year one, which is basically now. From my perspective, I think that it's more important to get it right than to rush and get 25 of them out. So I think if we, wanted to deploy, 5 this year and then, 10 next year and 15 the year after, I think that's also acceptable. So that's a timeline that
that's helpful. That's helpful.
Okay.
Good.
So the next thing is which antenna to use. So again, from a PI science perspective, my intent is that we choose the antenna that is most technically appropriate. And most technically appropriate can fall under a couple of different categories. So there's certainly a score for its technical performance in terms of which one gives us the best signal to noise ratio, which one has the pattern which is closest to what we want, which I believe is as omnidirectional as possible for this particular application. So that's one consideration. But other considerations are how much, how robust is the antenna? How easy is it to install? How much can we support it? So the DX engineering antenna, of course, has certain things really going for it in that category. It's not very large. It's relatively easy to install. There's good documentation. It's commercially available. If there are any problems with it, you just call up DX engineering and they can send you new parts. And we basically don't have to, be the technical help desk for it. We can, refer people back to DX engineering. So I think with all those things in mind, the other thing is, then of course the person who's receiving it, from talking to Elmer and Rob, and we're going to see this at my house. It's not a one-size-fits-all procedure for choosing an appropriate receive antenna and siting it correctly. It sounds like there has to be a lot of considerations about the particular site and what's there and what's not. So I think I guess I'd like to ask, maybe you and Gary to kind of say, okay, here are the places that we're looking at deploying them based on the people that have submitted to Gary through the website. And, and kind of, let me take a step back first. First, the very first question is one antenna technically performant better than the other? If they're equal, or if the DX engineering is better, then I think it's very simple. Then I think you just go with the DX engineering antenna because they just have all the commercial backing for it, and it makes it very simple. if there's a good reason why the single antenna system is technically better and more desirable for this project, then I think we have to ask ourselves the question, if and how many do we want to deploy? And I think, yes, Ward?
You're going to have to define better.
Well, so we had a whole presentation at the Hamside workshop about that.
I'll watch it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, yeah. So the antenna team, Michael Howen, Rob Robinette, there's Elmer Mustard, there's a group that have been defining better. They have a criteria, they have a table, they have a really nice presentation. That I still don't think they've made 100% recommendation, but there is a team working on defining what's better. So I'm going to follow that team's recommendation. So if that team, based on what they found, says, we really think that this new antenna is more appropriate for the project, I'm going to say, great, let's try to go with that. Now, are we able to handle all the deployment and the technical work? And maybe we can say, yes, we are, and we deploy to all these stations. Or maybe we say, we can handle it for 5 or 10 stations for people who are, technically savvy and willing to help out. And then maybe we deploy it to just those select stations and everyone else gets the standard DX engineering antenna that's right behind me. How does that sound?
I think the technical decision is still pending, and it may turn on a couple of things I had already mentioned. One is the relationship with the VLF part of the study. There's a I know Jonathan has been working on an antenna, a separate antenna, and so there's the issues of the interaction between that antenna and any other antenna that we pick, whether it's the DX engineering or the SAS. Glenn is pretty confident that the SAS antenna will not interfere with the VLF antenna, whatever manner, shape, or form that takes. But it has not been tested. It has not actually been tested in a site. And then there also remains the issue of whether the SAS antenna might not actually perform well as the VLF antenna. Because it does seem to perform well going down to a handful of hertz, really, under the right circumstances. It's a little difficult to assess accurately because the 888 is a crappy radio down at those frequencies. So one of the plans I have is to actually hook the SAS up to, in effect, a mimic of what Jonathan intends to use, which is his Behringer sound card, fed also by a PPS output from a U-Block's GPS receiver, and see if it performs serviceably down in the VLF range, in which case there might be a considerable advantage in having a single antenna doing duty both for HF and for VLF. Split outputs, one to the HF portion and one to the VLF receiver in the form of a sound card. And
I think
that would make the whole deployment much simpler if we can.
That's a solution I would absolutely support if that's appropriate, because I think if we can tell people you only have to install 1 antenna instead of 2, I think that will make people who are getting this system happier. I think that'll be better on our budget, and we might be able to get more stations for our money. And then I think it will also, I also do like the idea of, certainly at this stage, keeping Jonathan's receive hardware, and processing hardware separate from the ARX 888, because Jonathan has taken much care with using the pulse per second output, which I don't think the 888 is using right now, and we can't afford to lose that on the VLF. If anything, we need to figure out how to get that sort of thing implemented onto the RX 888 or a similar system. And I think it'd be a big mistake to try to just say, oh, we're going to use the RX 888 to do the VLF processing right now. In the future,
No.
in the future, maybe like the next grant we write, maybe we do something where we try to integrate, it all into a single receiver. But right now, having the separate VLF receiver and computer and processing, and having the separate ARC 888 receiver and processing, even if they share the same antenna, I think would be a better solution.
It doesn't answer the part of Jonathan's planned kit of the B plus B minus antenna. So there may still be another antenna if Jonathan's plan. I mean, it would just mean instead of there being 3 antennas, an E antenna for VLF, the crossed B plus B minus antenna, and an HF antenna, you'd have 2. You'd have
but I don't think the B plus and the B minus is technically written into this proposal. So
okay, that's good to
okay.
know. He was sort of building it in with the 4-port Behringer sound card device. One was a PPS input, one was the E field input, and then the other 2 were B plus and B minus. But
I mean, certainly, I think certainly if sites can support it, great. But I don't think we should let that hold things up, because I think that's adding complexity to the system that wasn't originally planned for.
Okay, that makes it simpler.
Yeah. So and I think Jonathan was telling me that Elmer, like you said, is essentially building another VLF system and doing some testing, which I think it'll be really good to have that independent testing there. And then when Rob and Elmer come over to my house in a couple weeks right after Easter, I think it'll be really good to do that field work there and get my station, my antennas back up and running, because my receivers are currently not in a good spot right now. But we'll be in a good position to test these different systems, because I have Jonathan's VLF antenna out there already. We'll be able to put in the SA system. We'll be able to put in a DX engineering loop, and we'll also be able to put in the DX engineering vertical as well. So the monopole. So we'll be able to have all 4 of those antennas out in the field.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Pardon me for asking. I was unfortunately on another call, but what's the B plus B minus antenna?
Jonathan wants to do a magnetic loop antennas in addition to the vertical that he has right now.
But why is he calling it B plus B minus?
I think they're orthogonal, aren't they?
They're orthogonal, right?
Yeah,
He's got
okay,
2 orthogonal
that makes
loops.
more sense. Okay, now I understand.
And then a monopole E field antenna.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, I took a couple of notes. Let's see here. Sam said I have a deadline to move. We got captured Nathaniel's comments about more important to get it right. We do a few now, a few next year, and get them all done by 2027. We're trying to figure out what is still the best antenna. Obviously, performance, physical robustness, and long-term support figure into the decision. And it sounds like the VLF question under consideration could the SAS function for VLF, and that's what Elmer's working on right now. And you guys are going to get your heads together in a couple of weeks on the 27th, I guess it is, 26, 27-ish. So more to follow on that. Anything else to add to the notes?
We'll make just one more comment. Nathaniel mentioned DX engineering support benefit that comes with going with that particular product. Tapper, I mentioned Tapper might potentially be interested in promoting the SAS, and so that might be an avenue of support as well, rather than it just being ham-sized staff or something.
Tim Duffy has also offered multiple times to have DX engineering help or produce things. So I haven't I don't, you know, so if that is something that Elmer or, you know, and Tapper and everyone would be happy with, you know, we could also consider asking DX Engineering to build it. I don't want to get into, you know, I don't want to step on anyone's toes here, but I do think DX Engineering has a particularly good store and support system. So.
Okay, I think I got those comments. Anything else on the antenna system? Okay, doing well on time. I see Rob is on, Whisper Grapes, Whisper Demon, all that kind of good stuff. Rob, is there any comments or updates you would like to make for the group?
I've been continue to work on establishing that no samples are lost in the transmission chain. And it appears that small sample set, but it appears that running at 64 megasamples, we don't lose, all systems work reliably as far as I can tell, but I haven't finished fully instrumenting the code. But then the problem is that with 64 megasamples is that even with a low pass filter in front of the RX 888, the 888 is so leaky RF wise. I mean, you know, the USB cable and associated things, even with ferrites and everything, you get all kinds of high frequency stuff leaking in, FM stations and so on. So there's reasons, you know, that has helped quite a bit by running at 129. So there's reasons to want to run at 129 megasamples, and there's cost. There may be loss of data associated with it on many systems. So it's you know, it's a work in progress there. It's a real challenge to measure this stuff, but we're using so we're incorporating measurements of tone burst, the tone burst at the top of the minute tone burst to try to calibrate to see if any samples are being lost in the 888 configuration. From what I can tell at these tests really are only usefully done at WWV 0/0, the Dave Schwartz's receive site. And because of this project and others, we're going to upgrade. I have a purchase that just arrived, a high-end P-Link, so we can install that out there and do more signal processing and not copy big files in and out of that site, because apparently connectivity costs go up if you do big transfers at that remote site. So anyway, so I've been trying to focus on that, measuring the tone burst, verifying through that process that samples aren't being lost in the 888 chain. Anyway, that's my major focus on the 888 part. I know that we have some reliability problems we have to think about the 888. It's really, you know, I wish we were building our own just simple 888, because there's a lot of problems with you know, but we know the 888 really well right now. We know its flaws, and you know, 18 months into working with it, at least we know its problems. I know Nathaniel has talked about trying an EDIS. My recollection is the EDIS does not have a full sample rate USB 3 output on it. It's a gig.
No, it would go over gigabit Ethernet.
What's that?
It would go over gigabit Ethernet.
That's not enough bandwidth. You don't have enough bandwidth over a gig E. They have the same problem with the Red Pitaya. even at 64 megasamples, sure, you have more than a gigabit real payload. And over a optimized GigE, you can only carry about 900 megabits. So the whatever you do, I think in Antarctica, I think you should anticipate, full-on redundancy, 2 full or 3 full systems, so that when there are failures, and there will be whatever equipment we get, that there's a backup. We have a reasonable chance of having a backup that continues to function.
Yeah.
So we need to do a lot of testing on that Antarctic project. I mean, we need to put a B-Link and a 888 or whatever it is in a freezer and run it at zero F or below, whatever so we need, that project fortunately isn't happening right away, but I just want to caution you, I don't think the EDIS is
sufficient.
I don't think it's going to be, it's going to involve, if we make it, I think if Phil's going to make it useful, he's going to have to run into some kind of compression mode on the samples.
Okay.
And you have to, before you have Phil invest a lot of time in an EDIS, we ought to really think through that, whether the results would be what we want.
Okay.
Okay. So
yeah.
And for the cost of an EDIS, you could buy about 5 888 B-Link systems. So
yeah.
So it just and even if you have you can run the backup units in warm backup mode, they consume about 6 watts just at idle. So it isn't a big power budget problem to have redundant 888 B-Link systems. A regular B-Link system averages about, B-Link 888 is about 25 watts over the 2-minute cycle of 2-minute whisper cycle. So anyway, once I get the tone burst and basically the effort to validate there are no samples lost effort, once that's done, I think that's about all I know to do for Whisper Demon and grape systems. I think we've beyond that, it's reliability and there are other features maybe, but that's at the end of it for me.
Okay. That sounds good. We'll definitely have to talk more with maybe more in the Monday night telecon. Yeah, I guess what you bring up about the bandwidth is a really, really good consideration and probably a good justification to keep going forward with the RX 888. I think the things that scare me about the RX 888 are that the poor reliability I've seen with it, and that becomes a big issue down in Antarctica. And then, Bill Lyles, showed me some plots where it wasn't detecting there's a lot of error in the timing of receiving WWV's second pulses. I know that there's something is being addressed there. So those are a couple of things that scare me about it. But not having the bandwidth is another big issue. I'm curious. What about? I don't know how. So okay, one thing on that. Bill Lyles did send me some extended emails I haven't had a chance to read yet, where he talked more about the pulse, the second tick problem. And so after I do want to come back to those emails and try to revisit them, I guess with you and with Phil, probably on the Monday night telecon. And that will hopefully happen over the next month or so. The other thing that might be a possibility is I know that in Antarctica, there's actually already a EDIS USRP there. I mean, if we're talking about doing redundancy, another thing that we could possibly do is we could, if Phil did make his system work with the EDIS, you know, we don't necessarily have to sample the entire HF band with the EDIS. We can sample, you know, up to, you know, from, I don't know, 5 to 25 megahertz, because I think you can do like 20 megahertz of bandwidth with it. And then the USRP also has the built-in GPS and pulse per second, so we might be able to start taking advantage of that, which is not built into the RX 888. So maybe there's a reason to have a system that has both of those running. I'm not sure, but yeah, at the moment, the current plan is that we're sending RX 888s down, and we're going with that at the moment.
In contrast to others, I have been working with something like 25 Whisper Demon grape sites, and apart from Michael's problems and some teething problems, they've all been working reliably for me once they're set up.
Okay. Yeah.
So I have a different experience with them, but they are fragile. So you got to be, you have to be careful about your installation setup, even with the external clock. They're not an ideal device, but there's nothing is perfect in the engineering world, and you have to work with what you have.
One thing,
and just to be clear, my work right now is exactly to address the Bill Lyle's observations. I'm okay. So I'm exactly. Scott has created a program that reads a wave file and outputs the burst offset time, and so I'm logging those for each 1 minute wave file. I output a number, say what's the offset of the burst in this, and at WWV, there's an offset. I mean, lacking a timestamp on the samples, we're never gonna. There's always going to be an offset because okay. But as long as the offset is constant, we're okay. Okay. But the question is that offset the same? That tone burst appear, for example, 58 milliseconds into each 1 minute wave file. If it occurs for days at 58.6 milliseconds, then you know that no samples have been being lost.
Right.
Okay. And we can't really calibrate absolute time using the system because we don't have a timestamp on the samples. We need to have, Tom, I think, has been working on that for the chameleon or whatever we're calling it, SDR, but lacking that feature, then maybe the EDIS, could put that in. That would be
well, and that's why I think maybe the EDIS is worthwhile, because I think the EDIS has all the hardware needed to put those timestamps in. The biggest downfall might be A, its expense, and B, it's and B, the not enough bandwidth. But yeah.
Well, anyway, I just wanted to make sure that you understand the trade-offs. And we don't know. Again, we've learned. It took us 3 or 4 years to understand and optimize and correct the Kiwis. We were a year and a half into working with the 888. EDIS, I have no experience with it. I know it's a very high-end receiver, but that doesn't mean it works well for our purposes and our configuration. So
well, I won't go sending Phil one right away and start having him do work without more discussion about this.
Yeah, well, that's great. I think that would be very interesting to have that as part of it. I mean,
but let's continue to have this discussion, and then we can figure out what the best approach is.
If I could.
Yes.
Sure.
A couple of comments. One, regarding the USRPs, they are well supported in GNU radio, so it's not like you have to reinvent the wheel. But the other thing I was going to say about RX 888 is my understanding about Chinesium is that the end user is the quality control. So anything that we would put out into the field, we should be burning in.
Yeah,
So put it
in, I think is maybe even more appropriate.
putting it under test for an extended period before we deploy it into the field is a good idea.
Oh, absolutely. We need to stick a system in at least into a refrigerator or freezer and run it for a few months.
Well, I just mean powering it up and running it, but because they do not do that. But anyway, yeah, I mean, we also should know what its limits are. I have a good chamber available that I can at least put an RX-888 and see what its real temperature limits are.
Absolutely. Well, it's not just the 888. It's the B-Link is attached.
Right. Yeah. The computer also has its
system
limits.
It sounds like it has to. What is it? Minus 26 Fahrenheit or something? In that vault in Antarctica.
Well, yeah, but we put it in the equipment we have there now. We put it in a box and keep it warm. The problem actually comes in when if you have a power failure, which does happen, then it gets cold soaked, and we would want to have a way of heating it up before actually powering it up. But that could be arranged.
Well, sounds like this is an area you have a lot more expertise and experience.
Right. Yeah, we've been running it for decades down there.
Yeah. Well, that we have to put together a whole, design and then go test it. So, sounds like you may be the test site for the Antarctic systems.
Yeah, that should work.
Okay. Well, it's 11 o'clock. We've covered a lot of ground, a lot of interesting discussion to be continued on Monday nights from the sound of it. Is there any other burning issues or questions or things we want to note that we can bring up again next week? Or
Gary, I have a request before you shut this down. Could you,
sure, Joe?
Could you leave the Zoom up for maybe 5 minutes so I can chat with Norman about a project?
Yeah, I'll turn the recording off when we're done. You guys can use the link. Sure.
Okay, thank you.
And Rob, I'll send you an email so we can meet on another link, okay?
Yeah, or we can meet on my Google Meet channel if you want.
Either way is good for me. If you want to send me an email, I'll join your Google Meets.
Okay, well, let me open that. Let's see. Yeah, Elmer. I say, yeah, let's go to my Google meeting. Meeting. Let me give up. Let's see. Hold on a second.
Well, let me say thanks, everyone. I'll close the meeting, just stop the recording and leave the Zoom open here then. So thanks all for your participation and your input. Hope to see you all again next week. Stop recording.